Have you ever heard of genetic memory? Basically, genetic memory is what it sounds like. It's memories from your ancestors that have been encoded into your genetics. There one study, I think this is the best study that kind of proves the existence of genetic memory, is basically they took a snail, and every time a snail sat down in a particular part of its cage, they would shock it, with a zapper thingy. And the children of the snail, they didn't interact with with its parents in any way. They would not go to that part of the cage. So this kind of shows that genetic memory is passed down. With memories, repeated bad things encoded into genetics will go through the genetics passed down to the next generations. Which it makes evolutionary sense, because if everyone is dying because they keep going into the cave of hungry lions, you're going to want them not to go into the cave of hungry lions, and if you can't, everyone's dying before they can communicate that with words, you're going to want the rest of your species just to know instinctively not to go to the cave of hungry lions. One example of mass genetic memory that I find to be really fascinating is the southeastern United States. Now, the southeastern United States is, especially Appalachia, that's more what I'm referring to as Appalachia, is fascinating because it is a little different from the rest of the U.S. in that it's agriculture. It's really hard to grow agriculture and stuff in the Appalachian Mountains. So, historically, people have been shepherds. And now, shepherding culture is a little different from that of farmers, because you're herding animals instead of just guarding crops. While people might steal some plants from a farm, typically a thief is only gonna steal some plants. You still have your seeds, you still have the ground. If someone steals your animals, that's your livelihood. So you have to learn to be a little bit more defensive and more willful, or protective of your reputation and your will. And even though today there's way fewer shepherds, and in the South, that difference between the South and the rest of the United States remains in its populations. There have been multiple studies done on this. People from the South tend to be more more defensive, more protective of their own egos, more confrontational, whereas people from parts of the United States that mostly thrived off of agriculture tend to be less of those things because of that mass genetic memory. And it's been making me think a lot about people, about humans, and the way we act in our mental health. The memories and the traumas of the people who came before us impact people who go down the line in several ways. Of course, there's the typical generational trauma where, certain values are inflicted onto people of lower levels, like a parent learned something so they do that to their child. But it may also be that just being descended from someone, you are inheriting their trauma and their trauma responses. And so that's kind of been getting me thinking a lot about the ways that people act, especially those who have dealt and haven't dealt with generational trauma, and the differences between the two. Because I'm thinking, maybe if the parent, I'm just going to make something up here, was neglected as a child, the child that they have, even if the parent is the most loving parent in the world, may still end up craving validation or being very attention-seeking, even though they grew up with a perfectly loving parent. There are actually even certain phobias that are proven to be passed down through genetics. Things like, I forgot the word, but the phobia of needles, that passes down through genetics, that's proven. This also is making me wonder about mental health treatments, because if you have someone who they never experienced a specific trauma, but somebody in their family did, and they're responding to that. They have the same trauma responses. How would you treat that? Because there's no trauma there for them to unpack and uncover. There's only trauma that their parents had, or their grandparents. I don't know how far back encoded memory goes. I don't know how heavily this topic is studied, though I think it should be studied more. And I guess for you, if you know the traumas that your parents and grandparents went through, that might say a lot about the way that you are and the way that you interact with the world and with stressful situations, the way you need certain interpersonal relationships, etc., etc. Genetics are absolutely fascinating to me, and the fact that you can pass down a memory is kind of astounding. And I think evolutionarily, that's not a word, is it? Evolutionary, it's going to be a word now. Evolutionarily speaking, very smart. Props to whoever or whatever designed us, so props to nature probably. But yeah, I just find it all really fascinating. Let me know what you guys think. I really want to hear your opinions. And if you have any like scientific facts or something, feel free to share them. See ya.